folks. Welcome to Acadia After Dark. I'm the Reverend Redbeard. Happy to be back with you, finally. It's been a while. I unfortunately was unable to do anything last week due to a storm that knocked out our power for a couple of days last week, Thursday into Friday. Now we finally made it back, have power, knock on wood. We hopefully keep it. Hoping the electrical holds out and the utility companies did their job to make sure we don't lose it the next time a leaf falls on the ground. We'll see how that works out, because where I'm at right now, we haven't had a lot of success with that. That's a gripe for another day. So I hope everybody's been doing well. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. We've been covering some of the drone activity on the socials there. People seem to be kind of a mixed bag of opinions on that stuff. Dropped a video the other night covering some of the basic theories, or at least what we're thinking on it, as of 3 days ago, which changes day by day. After that day, I think that was the night that some news came out where people were supposedly leaking some more information. Then we had this U.S. Navy X supposed statement released, which has yet to be authenticated. It's been a week. But we'll go over some of that stuff. Also had a interesting talk with somebody who had a recent encounter with one of the drones, or an apparent drone. I'm going to call it a UAP because I don't think it was one of the drones that people have been reporting in the news and stuff from Jersey. I think this one was definitely something different, or something a little bigger, but we'll talk about that anyways. Aside from that, it's just been doing great. Glad to see that people are enjoying some of the shorts we've started to try and do on the YouTube there. That's something new I'm interested in trying to experiment more with. Kind of enjoying that. I think as it's appearing that TikTok's going to get phased out, despite my personal opinions on whether or not that's really necessary, I'm going to act accordingly and just start migrating some of my presence that I just started to build there onto YouTube instead. Hold on, I just dropped something to the kids. A whole stack of kids' books here next to me that I'm sorting through to take to a library. I haven't made it out with them yet. Um, yeah, but trying to move everything over to YouTube, which has a slightly different user interface, and getting used to that when I'm really just getting used to the TikTok thing in the first place has been challenging, but I'm getting there, old as I be. Aside from that, we had episode 6 dropped, which was covering Catherine's Hill. Then we followed that up with episode 7 on Monday, which was over the Devil's Foot in Manchester. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight, too. We had a couple of I tried a new short format stuff on the socials, if you caught that. If not, head on over to pretty much all of them, aside from Blue Sky, because Blue Sky is still only to 60-second videos, which Blue Sky, you guys gotta do better there. Even Threads is able to keep that up. I'm glad y'all don't bury the links, but don't make us link if we don't have to. I do want to produce content specifically for socials like Facebook and Threads, etc. So I'm gonna start producing shorts that are usually like under 5 minute ones. Typically, if they're a quick story or a little anecdotal thing. The other day, first one we did was on Wessie. It was a big green python, or I want to say it was an African reticulated python uh, that somehow or another found its way into Westbrook, Maine, for a short period of time before it most likely died of the elements. But told a quick story on that, and that seemed to get some interest on a couple of pages there. I liked it because it's not enough to justify an entire video by itself, but it is weird enough that I feel like it deserves to be told. So glad people seem to be enjoying those. I want to produce more of them. The socials make it easier on certain platforms to do stuff like that. So I want to split time and energy between them as best I can because obviously if that's something that's going to make it more accessible for people and people can hear the stories and everything, that's ultimately all I really want is to tell the stories. So hopefully that'll work out. We'll see. Anyways, going into the last couple episodes we did, I had first we had Catherine's Hill episode 6. That one was a cool one I've been looking forward to doing this season. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it in season 1 or if I was going to end up waiting because I kind of wanted to go back and visit it because I have investigated that location before and I wanted to go back to it, but then I decided honestly, like it's a cool enough story. It stands on its own, and maybe later we can go back and revisit it and do an investigation and make something out of that because it's a cool place. It was an interesting investigation. I didn't catch anything evidence wise, but I definitely get why a lot of people get the vibe that it is a haunted area, and there's certainly mysterious vibes to the place. I'll say that it's got a whole aura to it. Even just driving to the location, the way that the road is, the it's a very narrow road. The trees are kind of closed in on the road, and as you're driving, especially in the evening, it feels very claustrophobic, and it definitely gives you a feeling. I can only really describe it as you feel like you're driving into a horror movie at points because it is that sort of a road. It's very curvy. It's beautiful out there. You drive down there. It is a great road to just take a nice ride on. But if you go there at night in particular, especially if you're already familiar with the area's legends and stuff and you have that mindset, it's definitely going to creep you out just driving down the road. So when I did it, I went out and investigated it a few years back. This was pre-pandemic, so I'm gonna say probably like 2018 or so. Um, we had I met one person out there that was familiar with the area and was just essentially showing us where it was and where reports supposedly had. And then I was bringing a friend of mine that wanted to actually like record some stuff. Okay, so we went out there and we just had like an audio, just a little audio recorder, which ended up dying very quickly into the night. I had a small camera, which also ended up dying. That was just a thing throughout the night. Everything that we had, no matter how much we had charged it or prepped it that earlier, and some, paranormal investigators will count that. I counted as really bad luck and the fact that it was like 35 degrees out there by the time that we actually got out and investigating, because this was in September, and typically it's warm-ish in Maine in the summer, but this happened to be a really cool night, and it might not have been 35, but it was cool enough that you could see your breath in the air. So as we were out there investigating, equipment just kept dying. Our flashlights were dying, our headlamps were dying, cameras were dying. Everything was just going wrong as we were there. So basically, it got to the point that all I had was essentially my cell phone, which I had a recording app on, like a digital recording app, and then we had I want to say we had a notebook that we were using and like two lanterns that managed to stay going, and we were there until about 2 in the morning. We started on one side of the pond. So in this picture, you can actually, that's up on the screen. If you're watching on the YouTube video, you can see this. If not, basically the way that the curve of the road is that on one side of it, there's a little like, um, not really a turnaround, but there's like a slight little turn in the road where there's some dirt and it goes down to the water. So we started out there recording on one side of this pond, and then after a couple hours where we weren't getting any noises, We weren't able to really get any vibes. We switched over to the other side where there was a trail that actually walks up alongside the pond beside Catherine's Hill, the road. And then essentially you have Catherine's Hill on one side of you, and then you have the lake on the other. So we walked up through that track and that path, and when we got up the path a little ways, it was like very dark. As I said, we only had uh, the one lamp that we had with us that was basically dead. We had the audio recorder. We had two lanterns. The lanterns were only really enough to light the few feet immediately around you. So we're just walking up this path in essentially complete darkness. The person that met us out there left. Just it was late, 2 in the morning. I had enough. I'm going home. Okay, fine. They weren't they weren't there for investigating. They were just showing us the ropes. So they took off. Me and my buddy that were investigating, we were walking up this path, and all of a sudden we hear something. Couldn't see anything. We could just hear something walking around in the bushes out there. So in Maine, when that happens, you get a lot of options. It can be something as simple as a squirrel. It could be a raccoon or a fox. It could be a porcupine. It could be a deer. There's plenty of options, right? But typically, if you're walking in the woods and you can't see it at night, you're not going to want to just drop things and run because you don't know what reaction you're going to get out of whatever it is. So we both freeze and we're sitting there and listening. And of course, hoping it would be a ghost at this point because that's preferable at that time of night to probably a bear or something like that. And a good rule is, at the time I wasn't, but since then have changed my opinions on it. So the rule of thumb there would be if you're going to be out in the woods at that time of night, stay strapped or you're going to get clapped probably because a bear will not think twice about dragging you away if it's hungry enough. We have black bear up here, which are not afraid of humans. They really are not. So I wouldn't be surprised if one came across us. At the very least, it wouldn't have been scared to run away. So at the time, we didn't have a gun with us. We didn't have anything with us. We were just out there with a cell phone and a couple of lanterns. My buddy immediately turns around and starts running up the trail. And as he does, I turn and I look towards these bushes where I hear something coming from the bushes. And I'm turning around expecting I'm fully going to see something, a bear or something like that. And I turn around and I don't see anything at all. So at that point, I was a little weirded out. But I figured, okay, whatever it was, it must have just ran back into the bushes when it saw my friend run, or maybe it went after him. So I walk back up the trail and I head out to the main road. Well, I can't find my friend. He's ran off. I don't know. He ran up the road a little ways, figuring he would go up towards the main road where it was a little more like lit. And I holler to him and he comes back. Well, as soon as he comes back, we started doing an EVP session. And that's when things started to get a little weirder. We didn't catch any actual EVPs, but the entire vibe of the place, come around 2 to 2:30 in the morning, it got so cold that it was oppressive. It was darker than it had been the rest of the night, even though the moon was out. And this could be entirely just our perception after just having the wits scared out of us in the woods. But for me, that was where I started to realize I was like, even if you don't see or feel anything out there, the whole area just has this vibe that makes you fearful. So I thought it was an odd experience, and I would love to go out there. We had basically we stayed until about 3:30 in the morning, then drove out. It's a pretty easy place to find when you get out there. So if anybody ever decides to go and investigate it themselves, it's an interesting drive, and it is a location worth checking. Just be cautious on that part of the road because it is windy, it is dark, and it is easy if you're out walking around out there. I could definitely see how visibility is not a thing. There's no street lights, there's nobody living out there. The cars that come through there are probably not gonna notice a person walking. They'll see a car, but maybe too late. So if I go out there again, I'm definitely gonna bring extra lamps. More visibility is a key thing because it's so dark out there, as it is in a lot of parts of Maine. Because we really light pollution isn't a thing up here, and you don't really realize how dark things are when there are absolutely no houses, no street lights, and all you are reliant on is moonlight and some stars. It really changes your perspective of what darkness is. But it was a fun experience. I would like to go out there again and try it if I get the opportunity. This spring probably because it's a little too cold to do it in the fall and winter here. Spring would be a better time, but that's something I want to do. Maybe next time I'll have some better equipment. Knock on wood. We've been looking into maybe getting some ghost hunting equipment because I would like to start doing some active investigations locally if financially feasible. Um, yeah, so that was a fun one. The part of it that kind of ended up going a little weird, and talked to a couple of people on social media about this because this is now the third case that, as I was investigating what I thought was just a fun, creepy little ghost story, I ended up coming across like a very real true crime or unsolved mystery, and this one was an interesting one. Um, so the Cherryfield man that was found, Kenneth Kramer, he was 28 of Cherryfield. Back in 1983, the man was basically found on the side of the road out there, and I don't know the exact spot. I do know that it is actually quite literally on Catherine's Hill, but where exactly on that portion of the road, I haven't found out. He was found with several gunshot wounds, shotgun wounds to the chest. Pretty much all signs of that do point to it being some. I would guess, knowing the area, yeah, they're probably right about it being a drug related thing. But in 1983, the population out there was only around, like, I want to say 260 people, something like that. There was not a ton of people in that entire town, and I don't know how much drugs were getting moved around there to where somebody would have had had somebody actually out there as a plant or something like that. So in the 80s, I don't know how much that would have really played come into play here. Not to speculate too much on it, but the whole thing there did seem kind of weird. And especially when, according to the police report, they had interviewed over 100 people and didn't find a single lead. Now, I'm not saying that Catherine showed up and like blasted this dude in the chest because she didn't give him a ride, but just it being on that side of the road, it does certainly make you kind of scratch your head as like, huh, because this, again, being the third case that I've come across that something like this would pop up. I'm starting to think these small towns just have a lot of secrets that tend to end up a very real crime is too easily turned into a ghost story or a legend or something. That was the same case with the Bucksport investigation, and there was another one recently that I have on an upcoming episode, actually. That same deal, basically, as I was investigating it, I'm talking to somebody, and they essentially tell me, oh, yeah, 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 like everybody knows this is what happened, but because of when it happened and who was investigating, it didn't, and it's been too long to do anything. So that's a weird, it's a weird thing to find out when you think that, oh, this is just like a cool little ghost story from this quaint little town, and this is only in season one, so I'm almost wondering if that is going to be something that develops over time. Who knows? Because I did not intend for this to be a true crime podcast in any way. But every once in a while, I see stuff that I'm like, maybe that's at least worth looking into, but I don't have that skill set. I know people that maybe do, so I don't know. Maybe I'll start turning it over to some of those people with what I find and then see what they come up with. But that's just outside of my wheelhouse right now. I'm into the spooky stuff, not the real stuff. We want to have fun here, folks. That's the entire name of the game. We're here for fun and whimsy. So let's try and keep it that way. Anyways, next on the whole last week and a half, 2 weeks since the last podcast, we had the Devil's Foot in Manchester. This was a quick and, this one's pretty common. A lot of people I feel have heard it. They may have thought it was in Manchester, England, and not Manchester, Maine. Easy mistake. Maine is huge, and we have a lot of towns that are named for other places. We have a lot of towns that are named for other countries in particular. So we have like China, Maine is a big town actually, well known. But that's what, when you hear somebody say, "Oh, I went to China around here," that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about actually going to the country. The Devil's Foot story was really cool. I like that. It reminds me a lot of the Witch's Foot from Bucksport in several ways. This one was a little more. It still has a little bit more mystique to it than the Witch's Foot, though, because the Witch's Foot is pretty well explained. It's a weird coincidence, cool story, but that's basically all it is. It's a weird story with an interesting turn of events. Meanwhile, the Manchester one with this Devil's Foot, I don't know how. I don't know if I would have, knowing what I know, I don't know if I would have assumed seeing a dent in a rock without knowing the context of it that this had any sort of story to it. But knowing the legend and then seeing it, it's a pretty cool thing. And the town itself and the church that it still sits next to, it is a very cool place to visit. If you I've driven through there. I want to get out there again. I really want to spend my some time traveling, hopefully, to get to some of these locations. The ones I haven't been to in particular. If it's one that I've been to before, then I'm kind of all right. But there's a few places I really need to get out to locally to me this year that I think would be beneficial as far as researching this one. I'm like, it's a cool one. I'd like to go out there and take a look at the rock and see what the indents look up close, because it's kind of hard to get a feel for size with this thing. It's not a huge rock. When you hear the story, it makes you think this is like a boulder. It's not. It's very much a stone. I feel like most people in Maine have probably had to move a stone similarly to this, so it's a weird one, but it's a fun story, and that's kind of one of those ones like the Witch's Foot, where I just like the old timey folkiness of it. Really hits for me. It's enjoyable. It's fun. It's scary, but not in the contrived way that a lot of modern ghost stories are, you know what I mean? Or modern paranormal ones where it's like some person was trying to go viral. This this one's more of the like hometown legend sort of thing, and I really dig that. So if you haven't checked out those episodes, they're fun ones. I'm particularly proud of the Catherine Hill one because I'm trying some new stuff with this. I want to really lean into the storytelling aspect of these, so I'm starting to write like new portions into the show that are aside from the research, the hard facts portion. I want to have like kind of a narrative fiction going on in some of the episodes in particular that lend themselves really well to it. The Parameyer Wolves one, in hindsight, was kind of the one that gave me that idea because of how that story plays out. It's kind of pretty cinematic when you explain the course of the events and how everything played out. So then, looking at the Catherine Hill story, it gives you a strong visual. Same with uh, the Allagash abductees. That one would have been another one. And granted, that one is very visual because they described that so clearly and so succinctly that it gives you a very strong visual impression just from hearing the accounts. This new one that I've got coming up is probably going to be the most that I've leaned into that yet this season, and it's I think people will enjoy it. It's a different thing. Um, that being said, it's also going to be part of what I think a lot of the focus of season two is end up going to be. So, as of now, all goes according to plan. By the beginning of January, we'll have released 10 episodes. That will be the completion of Acadia After Dark season one. That will wrap up the normal formatted YouTube videos for at least a month or two while I put some new stuff together, do a little bit of research. I'm actually adding a few new elements to that part of it that will take a little time to integrate. So there's going to be a slight pause on those. Planning on keeping the shorts going, planning on keeping up with the podcast if all goes according to plan. I'm not going to lay off too much on any of that stuff because the podcast and the day to day, the week to week events, I think we'll still have plenty of stuff to talk about. And the shorts, there's a few other little ones that I wanted to do. There's also going to be some extra content coming. I'm debating on if that's going to go to the socials or if that's going to be something that's done on the main channel. Things that I'm thinking of kicking around for that, or as far as ideas are concerned, possibilities of movie reviews, short story readings. Two options that I was considering as well was like product reviews, such as the like the apps and stuff that you can download for ghost hunting and things like that. I really want to do breakdowns of individualized apps for that. There's also a lot of like short form content that I still want to review that other people are producing because there's like so much stuff when it comes to TikTok and YouTube and Reddit and things like that that really there's so much stuff to analyze in just that. I try and keep up lately with the YouTube shorts as far as uploading any of the UAP hearing clips that I get. And I've got some actually that I'll play the audio from this show to talk about some of the drone stuff too, because there's been a lot of weird shit going on there. Um, oh, I think that's actually the first time I've swore on the podcast. That's weird. Okay. Uh, that's normal in my day to day life, but for some reason or another, when I'm actually doing radio podcasts and things like that, I swear like a sailor whenever I'm not in front of a microphone. Then when I'm on a mic, it feels weird to swear. I don't know why. So, yeah, that's that aside, the plan is going to be that basically we're going to try and have 10 episodes per season, at least right now. I think that's kind of where I'm going to max out for, quick bursts of content. I might spend a little more time next season and space them out by 2 weeks, depending on how it goes. There's certain episodes that it's very easy to produce one a week, but there's gonna be ones that I want to research a little more in depth. And if it's one that is an actively progressing thing, such as one of the episodes that I want to cover this season, then if something comes out with it, I want to be able to get it as fast as possible. And so that's going to be one that's going to take a little more time. Doesn't mean I'm not going to revisit things. There's already, after season one, I've already thought of two episodes that I definitely want to go back and revisit, though I'm possibly considering one of them as just being expanded into something else I think is going to be an ongoing thing in season two. So, yeah, plenty more to come. If y'all have been sticking around for this far in the ride, I do appreciate you, and I hope that you've enjoyed it so far. If you're just joining us and here you are at episode 7, we're going to have episode 8. It's out on Monday. Um, Episode 8, I think people are going to enjoy. This is a new one for me. It's another cryptid. It's going to be a longer cryptid video because this one is a big one. We have a lot of lore on in Maine. So I think people would be really digging that. I'm going to put the preview for that up most likely tomorrow night or Saturday morning. You should start seeing the little social tags that I've been doing on those. I had a couple of people say they really liked those and that they were creeped out by them. So I do like getting that response. That kind of made my day. We're going to do a little more of that sort of stuff. And this next episode is going to be a longer one, probably closer to the Palmyra Wolves and Allagash abduction um, than the Bucksport video. So hopefully everybody will be enjoying that. We'll see how I feel after that one because the last two episodes of the season after that, one of them is going to be covering a little more obscure of a case, and then the other one is going to be a themed one that'll be kind of it'll be throwing together several different stories. So I think y'all will enjoy it, and we're going to have kind of a mixture of everything for this season. Next season, I think I'm going to focus a little more on particular things Not saying I'm going to ignore other things, but I think it's going to be a little more focused next season. Hopefully that people will enjoy that. One thing I do want to get into, and I've started to reach out to people about on social media, I want to start interviewing and interacting with some other people, storytellers, horror adjacent people, paranormal experts, scientists in the fields that we talk about here, historians in particular, and investigators would be of big interest. I am trying to network with a few people that I'd like to interview for the show, so that will be something to look forward to in season two as well. One of the big ones that we're going to be looking for also is I want to get some of your stories. If you've had something weird happen to you in Maine in particular, but I guess all of New England and even some of, in northern, eastern Appalachia, I'd be interested in hearing your stories. Reach out to me on the socials. If you're not already following us on one of them, we're very easy to find. We're Acadia After Dark on literally everything. I don't know how we got so lucky that nobody's claimed those, but we've been doing it and it's worked so far. So if you can't find us on one, try on another. And if you have a story, reach out to me. I'll make an available email pretty soon that people can send audio if they need to, pictures, etc. I just haven't gotten around to sending that up yet because that's kind of a back burner idea. But I would like to hear more of that stuff. In particular, one that I've been recently talking to people a lot about, and I've heard a lot of reports from several people around here, is doppelgangers. Seems to be a lot of that activity up here in Maine, and I kind of have a personal theory on that. So I've been exploring that idea and talking to, and I've interviewed a couple of people. I've had a few people tell me their stories of it. Some of them are very uncanny. So I think in season two, we're definitely going to at least have one episode discussing some of that, or possibly it would be a podcast episode. I'm not really certain yet. Um, Another one of the things that we have coming up that I'm looking forward to is we have a lot of paranormal conventions this year. So I'm definitely going to be hitting up a couple of the ones that are going to be up here in Maine, and hopefully I can get some clips from that as well. If I can get anybody, there's a couple of people in particular I'm hoping to get to meet up with again. And if I can talk to them and get them on the show, I absolutely would love to. We'll see. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because I'm hoping for a very successful 2025. The finish of 2024 has been pretty great. I really have been, I've been having a good time. I hope you all have been too, hearing all the spooky stories that come out of these Maine woods that we've been talking about. Mm, Drinking my strawberry buble. Yeah, so we have yeah, so much stuff this past couple weeks with this drone activity. It's been insane. We had it started out, so I did the UAP video the other day, which was like day one basically that all this stuff was going on, and we talked a little bit about it in that, just some of the basic theories. Since then, I think I've kind of rejected a few of those theories I've talked about and kind of narrowed what I think is going on. Still all speculation because so much of this stuff, we're just in the dark about all of it. And ultimately, I think that's the biggest thing here is that everybody is really in the dark. And that's one thing I think people need to be aware of. Now, I said the other day in the video, I do agree that there's a fair amount of this stuff that is easily explainable. There's a fair amount of these drone sightings. There are just people that have not looked at the sky very often. And they're seeing stuff that they didn't know what it was. It was not very long ago that I had to have somebody show me what Starlink looked like for the first time, so that when I saw a string of apparent orbs in the sky, I didn't think that it was an alien invasion. If I had seen that not knowing that beforehand, then I would have absolutely lost my mind. And so certain parts of this I totally understand. People were talking about seeing the star Sirius there. Is that the one? Yeah. Either way, the one that's very like bright and strobing that you can see sometimes if it's like a very clear night and it's in the right position. That was one of those ones that like people now are noticing that and thinking that's a drone. I got a video the other day It was sent to me from somebody right here in Maine that it was 100% that's what it was in the video. And I hate to tell people sometimes that that's what you're looking at is a star or a far off distant planet or some other celestial body that we do know about. It is identifiable. One of the funnier ones this past week, there's been a bunch of politicians that have kind of shown their whole asses here. Some of them funnier than others. There was the one the other day, some GOP rep that got he was posted a video or a picture that he found on it had to have been Facebook or something because it's been years old meme of like a broken TIE fighter like photoshopped onto the back of a truck, and he was saying, I can't believe that we're allowing this in this country. And honestly, if I didn't know how just absolutely dumb some of these politicians are, I would have believed that that was a meme or him just joking. But sadly enough, like I think we all have kind of realized at this point that we are not dealing with the best of the best here. And I do stand by what I said when the first of this drone UAP coverage came out. And I was talking about the UAP hearings before the drones started really taking off in the news. And I was saying that I do feel that our government is failing us so much on this disclosure, sorry, and everything I've seen along this way has done nothing but reinforce that fact for me. I have seen so much of it in the last few weeks that honestly, I don't know if we're ever going to find out anything legitimate because so much of this stuff is just this person doing this person saying this. They're all pretending that they don't know what's going on. And half of them, I 100% believe that to be authentic because I think that there's probably a handful of people that do know exactly what's going on. But there are people in our government that 100% know what's going on. And the reason that I can say that pretty comfortably is first of all, I already have a theory as to where a lot of these drones are coming from, and if you follow me on socials, you probably have already heard that one. I'm not going to say it here on the podcast because I have a feeling that it will get me buried or I will have a lot of people mad at me in the comments. It is not like that, but what it is that we cannot trust billionaires, and billionaires are messing around with a lot of technology right now, and they have a lot to gain from having us all be very, very, very distracted by what's going on in our skies, whether it be real, imagined, or otherwise. Okay, so keep that in mind with everything that you observe in the next few months here, because that's really what is just in the back of my mind with all of this stuff is I'm like, this is only half of what we should be seeing and none of what we should be paying attention to. So, that being said, I do believe that there are legitimate UAP sightings that are happening right now in our skies. In fact, I have one that I saw yesterday on Facebook. And because we all know everything on Facebook is 100% real and authentic, I know we can trust it. And I say that half ironically because I actually know the person that posted this and I got to interview him. And I do believe this to be an authentic UAP. I don't count this as a drone. It may be a drone, but the drone denotes the phenomena we've been seeing is like New Jersey. And even the New Jersey ones, I'm noticing the differentiation in the reports there. So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing three different types of craft as far as the ones that we're seeing in the news, the viral ones that we're seeing everywhere, okay? So you essentially have your normal FFA or FAA regulated drones. Those are probably owned by hobbyists and commercial entities, okay? So that's your little helicopter one that anybody can see and identify as a drone, has the green and the red lights on it, the propellers on four sides, okay? That's your number one most common one that we're seeing. Pretty easy to identify. That's a drone, right? Then there's the reports of these other ones that are larger, substantially larger. Based on FAA regulations, those ones have to be registered. These ones are reportedly the size of an SUV to a bus in some counts, okay? These ones I do feel, if they're identified properly, are more akin to a actual UAP sighting. That's what I'm looking at when I'm looking at a UAP versus the drones. Is I'm looking at these larger, oftentimes they're more obscure shaped some rectangle, some triangular. The thing with them that I'm finding to be unusual is because of the fact that A, they don't have the normal lighting that we see on the other ones. They also move differently, and they're substantially quieter. That's why I think these ones truly are something different. Then there's a third phenomena that I've been seeing with some people identifying that I think is a really weird one. And this is an orb, is all I can describe it as. I've seen it. I posted a video the other day on, I think it was on TikTok and the shorts. There was a shot from an airplane going from Chicago to New York, and there's orbs. They're hovering or floating out above the clouds. So these are far higher than your normal drone would be able to operate at. So that rules out certain things. You know, in certain airspaces, you're not going to have that many planes in the sky at the same time. They don't look like planes, certainly. And people have gotten more close up, good photographs of these. So these do not appear in the photographs and videos I've seen. They do not appear to be a normal craft. People online and some more spiritually minded than I am when it comes to the interconnectivity of celestial phenomena, extraterrestrial phenomena, etc. I very much believe this stuff is science based. I come from a place of it being science based, even though I'm a spiritual person. I believe that the craft that we're seeing most of the time has a scientific basis to it. These seem to be something, some people are interpreting it as more energy, a plasma, something like that has been described as. So these are more orbs, and these orbs are unusual. A, because of their appearance, B, because of how they move, and C, also because when they've had closer up shots of them, a few of them have been very weird. I saw one in particular yesterday that it looked like the biblical depiction of the cherubim, that the angel that was made of all the wheels with the eyes around it. That was kind of the interpretation that this person posting it had, and I can't say that I thought they were wrong. It very much did kind of look like that, which was odd to me. So there was that. There was another one that was a more I guess it was like a bluish color. It was very bright, but it didn't look like there was anything solid to it. It looked like it was just manifested energy. So if that's a ball lightning, if that's something that's manifested, where people go with that, and I see as interesting, is that we have certain people talking a lot recently about Project Bluebeam. If you're not familiar with Project Bluebeam is essentially a conspiracy theory, quote unquote, in which the government would either orchestrate or set up an apparent alien attack or religious, a spiritual, like, event happening, right? So, like the Second Coming or a large scale alien attack. Think the end of the Watchmen comics. That, okay? So, basically, the US government or a world government sets that up. They use that as justification to create a new world order. Now, there's, of course, the connection there that I think we all need to identify first, and that is, who was it that was, absolutely involved during the most recent political campaign? Yeah, I think we all know who's really responsible for these drones, and that is Hollywood Hulk Hogan, the original founder of the NWO. That's who we can blame for all of this. So, as long as we all understand that Hulk Hogan is ultimately to blame for all of this drone UAP phenomena, I think we can all sleep better at night, okay? But, in all reality, I do not think that Project Bluebeam is where this is going. However, it is interesting that we're seeing a lot of drones in certain places where they shouldn't be. The government seems super duper chill now with people flying drones into restricted airspaces, airports, government facilities, etc. They're super cool with that apparently all of a sudden now, when I know for a fact I live next to an airport, and if I even thought about flying a drone anywhere remotely near that airport, I would have had the FBI at my door probably that night. That being said, if that isn't really a worry for them, I feel like we can kind of extrapolate a lot of information from that as to where we should be putting our attention in it. And if we do start seeing that there's things in the sky, whether it be apparent angels as these orbs are looking like, or if we start seeing these sky battles, which is certain somebody seemed to have alluded to back in September, then maybe there's something to that, although not to the scale of what they were imagining. I'm not going to get too far into the conspiracy end of this because I think there's a lot of reasonable explanations for 99% of this stuff. Whether it's fun or not, unfortunately, I'm kind of here to, let's be real. I love the spooky stuff, but there's only so much of it that we have to entertain ourselves, but then at a certain point, we have to see reality for reality, right? We can all agree that there's certain things that we can prove. We need to take it for what it's worth there. And I want to do a whole I want there's a whole talk to be had right now about the presence of AI through all this, where that's going to fit into the furtherance of the burden of proof, how that's going to affect our interpretation of evidence and things like that in the future. Ultimately, I kind of am starting to agree more and more all the time with I was listening to Aiden Mattis the other day on Lore Lodge, and I'm fully hearing him say that the other day. I kind of agree with him that ultimately I don't think that any perceived good that we get from AI now is going to justify the potential harm that it does to us overall. So maybe we all need to just like chill on that and be a little more aware and conscientious, but that's kind of a rant for another day. Um so we're already 47 minutes into the episode. I've ranted a little bit here, but here, let's talk about this UA piece from yesterday. So what we got here, I did a little bit of research on this myself, and I also talked to the witness via text yesterday, okay? So here's what we got. This was spotted in Maine along Graham Lake, okay? Graham Lake is located around between Route 180, Route 1A, and Route 179. The direction that this craft was going at the time that it was spotted, it was heading towards Bangor, which would have put it heading towards the airport. The time stamp on these photos, both of them depicting a craft that in the photo it looks to be triangular. The witness adamantly describes it as square shape. And what you're seeing in the photos is essentially the angle of it. I want to work on brightening these photos up. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to do it today. And I want to run them through a few different filters to see if there's anything else that can be picked up in it. Because one of them, you can almost get an impression of an outline. I posted them to the socials. Take a look on them if you feel like you want to see it for yourselves. If you're an audio listener, this is probably going to be one of those parts that you're going to be a little frustrated with. And I'm sorry for that, but it's what happens. So the next thing that happened was the craft actually was going along Route 179 and heading towards Bangor along the lake. Then it turned, tipped on its side, and began heading the other direction towards Route 1A, which would have put it heading south from what I was seeing, okay? Now, this was posted to a Facebook group originally. It's a private group, and as I've said before, some of these groups are better than others. I have presence in a couple of them that are pretty good to interact with, but there's certain groups that there are going to be people that are operating in bad faith. And this drone topic seems to very much have riled these people up. They have their jimmies rustled to the max. I don't know what the hell is going on with them. But there are people that are adamant out there right now that do nothing but want to spend their time telling you that you're wrong and everything is an airplane. And I'm a person here to tell you that yes, a lot of them are stars and airplanes and perfectly explainable things, but when it's not one of those things, we have to be able to look at it. And if you're not willing to accept facts are facts, one way or the other, then you don't want to be part of the conversation, really. So what happened in this group was a lot of these people jumped on this immediately and tried to, well, pinpoint where it was, what else it could have been. So here's what we got from the group and then what I fact checked on this. So, according to the group, they found that there was a. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. So, according to the group, there was a C-17 that flew in to Bangor Airport that night. They have a flight plan for it. They did do that much. The problem was the timestamp for the photos of the craft that was seen when the photos were taken was 6:41 p.m. The C-17 that flew into Bangor Airport was reportedly there at 11:23. Significantly later. They move low and slow, but not that slow. When you're talking 20 minutes drive, there's no way. And I don't see why it would have been. Now, there was one other thing that was interesting. There was a C-5 cargo plane that flew into Bangor as well. That C-5 cargo plane, according to the flight log that I have been looking at, says that it landed at approximately 5:46. That puts it almost a complete hour before this other craft was seen. Now, some people in the group immediately tried to say, oh, well, there are Blackhawks in the area too. Now, I can tell you this craft that is in the pictures is not a Blackhawk. It does not look like a Blackhawk. And quite frankly, the closest one that it identified to me, as it looks like it could have been, was the C-5. Here's the problem. You can go online anywhere. You can go and you can look up almost any model of jet out there. You can find a video and pictures of it at night from the underside, from the top side, from the front, from the bottom. You can find those, okay? They're out there. Feel free to look them up yourself if you don't believe me. So I've looked at a C-17 before because that's a fairly common one, right? And I looked at it. I showed it to the witness. The witness identified this and said, this is absolutely not what I was looking at. In fact, the witness is a little frustrated by the entire situation because they're seeing it. They reported this craft was 400 feet above them. That's very close. If you're talking a jet, you're going to feel that. You're going to hear that. You're going to know that it's a jet. This thing, according to the witness, who also had a small child in the vehicle who fully corroborated the story, does not hear any sound coming from this craft. Not a thing. This is not, I'm driving down the road and all of a sudden I hear it. This person got out of their vehicle to take these photos. They pulled over. I find that to be interesting, to say the least. So the other one that we were looking at there was the C-5. So I've looked at that. C-5s, when they're landing, they are large. They do move slow, so I can understand. But this craft was apparently moving from anywhere from 5 miles per hour, according to her. That's relative speed. We're talking at a distance, so I'm not expecting everybody to be like pinpointing that to exact, but she said it was moving very slow, almost at the point that it was hovering, and then sped up once it turned to about 25, she said, to the point that she was able to drive when it turned. When she drove, like, she almost lost it. It was like that much of a speed difference. And I don't think that that's something that, first of all, I find this person to be very credible. I do not have a doubt that this is not a person that is doing this for attention. This is not a person that is doing this that typically believes that there's drones and conspiracies and all this stuff. This is a person that when I saw that they had an encounter, it was immediately some of the people I was surprised because they're not a person that normally would have taken pictures of something if it was something that we could easily explain, right? So then when I showed her the videos, I found pictures of the C-17. She looks at those. No, that's definitely not what she saw. I show her the video of the C-5, this gigantic cargo plane, and she basically scoffs at it to the point that is 100% proof positive this is not the craft. She watched it. This C5 landing, you would have heard it, you would have felt it, and if it was 500 feet away from your vehicle, it would have looked massive. She's reporting this craft, whatever it was like a large SUV. 500 feet away. Pretty clearly visible. Even the picture, it's pretty clear. Now, granted, the light pattern in one of the photos did make me kind of think maybe this is the C5. If it wasn't for the absence of sound and the fact that in the other photo, this is very obviously a different light pattern from a C5, I would have thought that that's definitely what we're looking at. But I'd be happy to hear if anybody else can identify it or sees something that I'm not in it. I do want to brighten it up. So if I can do that, I'll upload it to the socials. It's already up in a pretty high resolution on my Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. So if you want to go check it out over there. Let me know what you think. If you haven't already seen it, it's worth looking into. I'm gonna keep following up on this one because this one is a significant one for our area because it's outside of the normal drone phenomena that everybody's been talking about. So I definitely think this one is interesting. It gives me a little more it gives me a little more interest in it because honestly, after you see so many drone videos a day, at a certain point, it's all kind of turning into a blur, and there's a lot of that, unfortunately. So the last thing I wanted to talk about tonight, and I'm kind of running out of time, so maybe we'll do this in the next episode. As I said, and this is going to be a common trend on this channel, y'all are going to hear me. I'm not going to pick a side in this whole thing, but at the same time, our U.S. government and what they're disclosing about all this UAP phenomena, man, I'm starting to think that like if we ever do actually like hear them say, yeah, there's something going on here. I think it's already kind of, the ship has sailed. I think most people have already kind of decided for themselves. I don't know why the government's not telling us what they know. There was talks earlier this week about there being something, a dirty bomb that somehow or another got in, and they were monitoring for that. Then there was, oh, well, this is actually something about some sort of like, they're checking nuclear reactors. Well, I don't know about that either. There's a U.S. Navy X, some sort of PDF. I don't know. It's a text document that was written by a supposed whistleblower discussing a lot of this stuff, giving context to certain things, but completely unverifiable as far as I'm concerned. I like hearing that stuff. It's very X-Files-y. The fiction part of my brain that just loves stories is totally eating that shit up. But I also have to be realistic here. We know nothing. Our government knows something, but they're not telling us. And honestly, with so much crap going on in the world right now, are you even surprised? And do you expect them to be truthful with us? Have they been truthful with us with anything for years now? I honestly don't think so, and I don't know many people that do. I honestly think that when it comes down to it with this entire drone situation, we're going to come through and the whole thing is going to end up being just a big old friggin' nothing. It's going to be way more boring than we would all like it to be. It's not going to be aliens, unfortunately, even though that would probably be the preferable thing. Best case scenario, it's some like other version of like the Chinese weather balloon in my mind. Like, does that sound bad in a way? I don't know. Maybe. Did the Chinese weather balloon really matter though? I know a lot of people were wound up about it, but honestly, Did it make a difference? We talked about it for a couple weeks and then we memed on it. Is that any different here? That's kind of what we do with things nowadays, right? I don't know. Maybe that's just a coping mechanism that we have because we've all been through so much stuff in the last, I don't know, forever, most of us. But honestly, I don't think that they're going to tell us any more than that. And I'm not expecting them to anymore. I've got a bunch of clips that I was going to show and audio and stuff of like different speakers this week, UAP hearings, things like that. I'll do a roundup video of it just to go over it. I'm not going to make y'all sit through some of it because some of it is very long. So I'd like to filter some of it out because, man, some of these people, they just like to hear themselves talk. We know how politicians are. No surprise. Um, anyways, the whole thing, the more that it develops, I'm going to talk about it, but I don't want to overdo it because honestly, that's not really what this channel is about. This channel, I want it to be about fun stuff. I don't want it to be focused on one topic. The drone thing, while it's happening in New England, and it is a very big thing, like I'm a big UFO person, big UAP person, I have been my whole life. So when that stuff's happening, yes, if it's of interest to me, I'm gonna talk about it. If you don't want to hear about it, sorry, it is what it is. I'll try and not make it all the content. If you do like it, let me know and we can talk about it. But I'm not gonna talk about it all the time because there's a lot of cool stories out there that I want to tell too. We have ghosts and stuff that we need to be talking about. We have Bigfoot to find here. We have real priorities here. We're doing serious things here. Anyways, it's already been 2 weeks of this drone stuff, and how much more are we really gonna find out? I don't know. We'll talk about it next episode. Maybe we'll see if any more comes up. Maybe we'll find out by then. Maybe we won't. If we do, cool. If not, ultimately, I don't think it's affecting us too much at the moment. I think we all have bigger things on our plates, and probably with the holidays coming up and stuff, I think they do too. So let's just chill on this stuff. We'll wait. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a heck of a month, man. The month's already flown by. 2025 is right around the corner. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. I probably won't talk to you until the following week, anyways. Yeah. So this episode of Acadia After Dark, as usual, has been written and produced by Reverend Redbeard. The podcast itself is recorded live every Thursday night. Please do join us if you haven't already. Come on over to Twitch and say hello sometime. I do want to eventually get to maybe trying to stream on YouTube and see if it's a little different. I know the algorithm is kind of weird on there, so I wouldn't mind experimenting with it. If anybody has more experience with the YouTube stuff and how to kind of juice the system, let me know. I do want to, before I go, I want to thank everybody that supports the channel, everybody that's supported me. It's been a great year. I've been enjoying what we've been doing so far with the podcast and the show. I hope that it continues to grow and expand. I'd like to hear more from y'all as far as what y'all have been seeing and experiencing and stuff. So if you want to share a story with me, I'm happy to talk about it. I'm also happy to keep you anonymous if you want. Or if it's something that is more involved, I do want to talk to more creatives on this whole thing too. So, if you listen to the podcast and we don't talk, let's talk. If we don't, that's okay too. Anyways, we got a couple more weeks before the end of the year, so I will be back next Thursday at the usual time, 7:30. I do appreciate y'all. It's been a real one. I'm hoping that by the time that we come back, everybody's had a good Christmas, happy holiday. Hanukkah begins that same day. It's gonna feel like the year just flew by. It already has, hasn't it? But I think we'll all enjoy it. I hope that it's a good one for you too. I do appreciate everybody. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas wherever you are. We'll be back on the next one. Thank you for listening to Acadia After Dark. I'm the Reverend Redbeard. Stay spooky. See you soon.